Hey guys, we have a new tool in the shop. I have a milling machine now. You have all seen the lathe that I've been using for a little bit in some of the videos. So that's a Craftex CX701. And we now have a Craftex CX601 mill. So I also bought this mill used, same as the lathe. I did get that used as well. And paid around the same price for both. This one's a fair bit newer, but doesn't come with as many, or didn't come with as many accessories. So this one's built in 2020 and this one was built in 2012. So 8 years newer, and it does show just in the condition of the machine and cleanliness and less dings and scratches and things like that. Let me first show you bringing it home and getting it unloaded and onto the stand here. And then we'll talk a little bit about the features of this mill. Just got it home and it's on the trailer still all wrapped up. What I ended up doing to strap it down is there's two straps across the table itself. There's one across the head up here and another one that goes across the Y-axis of the machine down here. I also put a moving blanket underneath it before I set it on the trailer. The person that I picked it up from had a small tractor that they were able to use their forks on it to actually lift it onto the trailer, but I put a moving blanket down underneath and then wrapped it all up around it. So just some bungee cords and actually duct tape of all things to sort of protect the machine. And there are some looser components, there's a guard here underneath here that kind of flops around a little bit just to protect it a little for the journey home. It also came with the stand and tray here, the chip tray. Those I actually just put in the back of the SUV. I didn't need to strap those down. They're actually fairly light. This is probably, I don't know, 60, 70 pounds. So that was easy enough. I can lift that up and move it off. The mill itself is closer to 600. So it's a little heavier and hence having to put it on the trailer rather than throwing it in the back of a trunk of something. The other thing I've done, I did this with the lathe when I brought it home as well, is I actually screwed 2x4s to the deck of the trailer, and this is right up against the back of the machine here, and same with the one on each side there. And the reason I did that is it just prevents it ever from sliding. It's probably not strictly necessary with all the straps and everything, but just a little more peace of mind that the machine's not going to kind of shift forward or back. Well, I guess it could technically shift back because I didn't put a board at that end, but doesn't shift forward or side to side on the trailer as I'm going down the road. So just a little bit of extra security. I had no issues at all bringing it home like this, so nothing loose or flopping around or falling off or swaying or anything like that. Went pretty smoothly. I'll show a shot where I just stopped and pulled off the road to double check everything a few minutes from where I picked it up. Good practice just to double check all the straps and everything are still tight after you've driven it a little bit. So the guy didn't throw in too much. This is the toolkit that usually comes with the mills. So there's just some wrenches and screwdrivers and Allen keys and looks like an oiling bottle and stuff like that. So nothing too spectacular. It also has the manual and the original tolerance inspections. Who knows if those are actually true or not. And then just a little container full of other things. So it does have the drill chuck, a few collets, although they're in a bit rough shape. Hopefully they'll clean up all right. Some clamp down bolts, T-slot nuts, but we'll see how all that goes. And there were a few end mills as well, but not really any tooling to speak of. He did say he only used the mill for a month and actually upgraded to a big bridge port. So he had that in his garage when I showed up. So that's why he was getting rid of it. So it's in generally pretty good shape, it seems, but we'll take a closer look once I've gotten it unwrapped and off the trailer. So next up, I'm gonna get it unloaded from the trailer. I'll try to film some of that, but it is kind of awkward and heavy to move some of these things around. So I'm not sure how many shots I'll get. I do have an engine hoist to actually lift it up off the trailer. So it's not as though I'm trying to manhandle it, but still engine hoists are awkward to use. So let's get started on that now. There we go, all unwrapped. You can see why I had it wrapped up. So there's stuff like the door here, all the controls on the side and at the front as well on this side, but just wanted a little bit of extra protection. The thing is in good shape. There's no dings or marks on the table or anything like that, although we can go over that a little closer. And I think even some of the original grease is still on this, the shipping grease, rather than a fresh coat of whey oil. Like I said, the guy didn't use it that much before he got a bigger machine. I have seen it running, so it's not as though, I'm gonna plug it in and it's not gonna work. So it is working. But next up, I'm gonna have to pull up the engine hoist and lift this thing up and get it off the trailer. Okay, so just given the reach of the engine hoist and that I don't want to pick it from the side, what I'm going to do is I have rigged the table. I'm going to slide it back across the trailer just with a bit of weight off of it and then re-rig again to actually do a lift. I'm just going to basically lift the mill straight up and then pull the trailer out from underneath it. And then I've got some lumber here, some 2x4s that I'll put across the legs of the engine hoist to set the mill down, and then I can move it around the room just to begin with. So I have it slid forward a little bit. I shifted the rigging so it's a little bit better centered kind of on this plane here. And I'm actually like straight down almost with the engine hoist so it's not reaching out anymore. And so now I'm going to lift it up and get it off the trailer. The dangerous part, we're hanging in the air. And there we go, down on the, well, almost ground on the engine hoist so I can actually wheel it around. It's going to stay like this at least for this evening. I won't put it up on the stand tonight. I have to move and make some space somewhere in this corner here. But for the time being, it's off the trailer and all in one piece still. Minus, I guess I took the cover off the top just so the cables didn't pinch it. But otherwise, it's all in one piece. So I skipped filming a bunch of stuff just as I was getting things sorted. But I have lifted the mill up onto its original stand. I didn't have feet for it, so I bolted a couple 2x6s in place where the feet would normally be with a slightly larger footprint just for now. I'm going to end up building my own stand. As you can see, maybe if I get down at this level, the lathe is here, or sorry, the mill is here and my lift console is here, and it's a little bit lower, and I'd like it just to come up above. And I guess the other thing, even if you look compared to my lathe actually, the hand wheels are fairly low. So these stands are not nearly tall enough, so I will end up building a tube stand for it as well, like I did for the lathe. But this will do for now. I have it up on a stand and I can actually use it until I get around to building a proper stand for it. And you can see, I think this is where I'm going to leave my drill press, just in the corner, kind of in front of the bolt bins. I can still get at all the bins. And the other thing that goes there is typically the welder goes in this corner over here. So the next thing I'm going to end up doing here once I get the stand bolted together is I'm going to move the mill kind of into this area right here. And we'll see how that all fits before I make everything permanent. But that's where I'm at right now. So there we go. It's up on the stand and sort of in position, at least for the time being. Like I was saying, I'm probably going to make my own stand for it. I need to raise this up high enough that I can clear the lift console. I'm just about there, so only a few more inches will clear the console. And then that way I'll be able to push it back a little further. But even here, it'll still fit for the time being. The welding cart's still in the corner. The drill press has moved over a little bit, maybe a bit more awkward. We'll see what else I can do. I think eventually the blue bin's gonna move down to the basement, and that way I can tuck everything into that corner a little better. And of course the lathe is still there. So weight-wise, the mill itself is just over 500 pounds, and with the stand is getting close to 600 pounds. So decent enough weight for a bench-sized mill. It's probably at the upper end versus some of the mini mills that you usually see, but it's also not a 2,000 or 3,000 pound machine. So it's movable, but you need really an engine hoist or something similar to rig it up to actually lift it. But it's not so big that you need to, have a half dozen people and special rigging and all of that sort of stuff to actually get it somewhere. So I, as you saw, brought it home on my trailer and then just used the engine hoist over here to lift it up and put it onto the stand. I also gave it a quick wipe down just to get some of the grime off and make sure everything was clean. Table's in pretty decent condition. There's no real gouges or anything. There's some discoloration in a couple spots that haven't scrubbed out yet, but otherwise pretty good shape. The ways are also in fairly good condition. So overall, pretty pleased. So now let me take you on a walkthrough of some of the features of the mill and just the size and dimensions. So the table on this is, I have a measuring tape here, is 33 inches, give or take, by roughly 8 1/4. A little bit on the bigger side for a benchtop hobby mill. And then spindle to table is just over 18 inches, somewhere right around there. So fairly decent work envelope for a benchtop mill. Obviously not as big as a larger knee mill, but for the size of the garage and how much space I have to work with here, it actually will work out fairly well. The mill itself has a 2-speed gearbox, so there's a gearbox here to switch between high and low, and then on the other side it is variable speed here with the knob, and it'll go to about 2200 RPM. I haven't quite seen that, but we can turn it on and give it a run up. So just over 2000 RPM on the high speed, and fairly quiet too, surprisingly. It's a lot quieter than I expected it to be. It is a 1.5 horsepower motor, so the cover is unscrewed right now, but there's the motor in top, and that's actually where the RPM sensor is as well. But it's a 1.5 horsepower motor. It says 1100 watts and 12 amps, which is right in line with what you would expect for a 1.5 horsepower motor. So Y-axis knob on the front, X-axis handles on either side as you'd expect. The Z-axis is up here at the back. Not the most convenient position for it, but it does work. Obviously, I guess. And then quill is here. You can also lock the quill in so that you can use a fine down feed knob here, so you can see just ever so slowly goes in as well. And then unlock, of course, and bring it back up. The hand wheel graduations are actually 2.5 thou, which is a little unfortunate. Hopefully you can see that there. Let me zoom in. Which is a little unfortunate because it does make the math a little more challenging. But each hand wheel turn is a 1/8 of an inch. So not terrible to work with, but obviously not ideal like a normal 1/10 of an inch that they would have per turn. So in addition, there's lockouts on every axis. So the Z-axis is here, the X-axis here, and the Y-axis is actually underneath here. And then finally, the quill lockout is here. So you can lock out every single axis on this as well. The other thing it does have is this cover guard. When it's open, the mill won't run, so it won't actually turn on with that door open, whereas it will otherwise there. That might get bypassed at some point. That is a little frustrating sometimes to have that in the way. But we'll see. We'll leave it like it is for now and see how it works. There's also a DRO, I guess you could call it, a digital readout of sorts for the quill. There's no battery in it right now, so it doesn't power on, but I'll eventually get that working and see how accurate it is. This mill, unlike my lathe, which I do have a DRO right there, this mill does not have one installed yet, so that'll definitely be an upgrade project sometime in the near future to add a DRO to it. And of course, you can't just buy a mill, you have to buy all sorts of tooling. So since this one didn't come with much, there are a couple call-outs in the original drill chuck for it that are down in that toolbox that I showed you earlier. But I went out and ordered a bunch of things, some from KBC Tools and some from Busy Bee. So I picked up a 5-inch, relatively cheap import milling vise. We'll see how this one works out. I figured for the first one, I wasn't gonna go spend $1,000 on a Kurt or something like that. I decided to go with something cheaper. This was under $200 and is what you'd expect for a Chinese vise. It does have the, I guess, rotary table. It's not actually a rotary table, but angle table that you can rotate it with. And we'll see how this goes and just give me a chance to learn when I'm just messing about, and then we'll see what I need to upgrade or if it's close enough for initial purposes. I picked up a bunch of R8 collets, so from 1/8 inch up to 7/8. It was just a set, made sense to do that. Picked up a measuring tape? No, I already had the measuring tape. I picked up a drill chuck, a keyless drill chuck, and a R8 to JT6 taper adapter, or whatever you want to call these, for that drill chuck. I like having a quick change drill chuck, so although the other one is keyed, this will give me a quick change one. 1, 2, 3 blocks were just on sale, so I grabbed another set. You can never have too many of those. I picked up a Noga, which these are a little nicer, but a Noga indicator holder that can go into the quill so that I can actually tram the mill and everything. I do have a magnetic Noga indicator holder, and they're quite nice. A relatively inexpensive, I think these were only 20 bucks at the time, but Michutoyo edge finder. I picked up a set of KBC V blocks, so just a couple different sizes with clamps, some parallels, again, a couple different sizes. And then finally, and this was from Busy Bee as well, the clamping kit here. So just all the things that I actually need to clamp stuff to the table. It's worth noting the specs online are wrong. These are actually the 1/2 inch T-slot nuts. So I think online it says they're 10 millimeter or something, but these do fit quite nice. So you see the 1/2 inch T-slot nut, and they fit into the T-slots quite well. So not any real play, but they do fit in there. I measured these at 0.56 inches, which is why I ordered the 1/2 inch rather than the smaller ones. So yeah, just picked up a bunch of the typical accessories that could get me going. I already have a few end mills that I can experiment with to begin with, and then I'll pick up whatever else I need, like a fly cutter or anything like that, just as I need them for certain projects. But wanted to have enough that I could get the machine set up, get it trammed in, and get an idea of how it works and what I'm going to be able to do with it before I spend too much on tooling. So I guess next I'm going to get the vise mounted to the table, get an end mill chucked up in there, and see how it goes. Try and take the first cut with it. So stand by while I get that put together. So I got the vise mounted. It's definitely not squared or trammed in or anything. Interestingly enough, the studs that come with the kit here, so these guys, they don't fit. Well, they fit, I mean, physically, but the thread part actually comes up above. It actually ends up sitting like this. And I can't bolt it down with these. So I've used a couple 3/8 by 16th bolts. It's not ideal, but we'll have to do for right now. Okay, so I have the mill mounted. I have a 1/2 inch end mill held in a collet inside of the quill. And I have a little piece of aluminum flat bar here that I'm going to try doing a facing cut, I guess, just across the top here. All the machinists out there who are yelling at me that I'm doing something wrong, well, I'm about to find out. Here goes nothing. Well, how about that? Nothing exploded, and it did make a cut. Not the cleanest. I'm guessing I need more RPM. I know typically with aluminum you do need more RPM, so I'm guessing that's what was going on. But yeah, it actually cuts, and it made some chips for the first time. That was literally the very first cut. I'm going to try now just to cut on the face of this as well, just across here with the side of the end mill, because I've never done that either, so that'll be next. Well, there we go. Not bad here either. Decent chips. I did put it in the high gear instead and turned up the RPM. It was about 12 or 1300 RPM on that cut, and certainly felt a little bit better. There might have been a bit of chatter. Hard to say exactly. Like, it felt like there was vibration, but I don't know if that was just the sound of the milling cutter, because I've never done this before, or if it was actually having any chatter. I guess the face is pretty smooth, but not perfect. I did have the axes locked, so I think that's, number one is make sure everything's locked. So those were all locked in on every axis except the y-axis. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I'll take a few more cuts here just to play with it, but pretty cool. I'm actually milling stuff now. Made a second cut and a little faster feed speed, but also a little more depth of cut, and doesn't even seem like the mill is struggling. It cut through that like nothing. So it's working pretty well. And with that, we'll call it a day. I don't have any specific projects for the mill coming up. Really, I just need to learn how to use it first and get, everything trammed in and things like that. So you'll probably see it on the channel every now and then as I learn new things or try new stuff with it. But for now, it's just going to be learning experience for me. If you have any suggestions on things I should do or try, let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.